Thank you, Doyle. Without further ado, let's make our Week 5 picks. We begin Thursday night. Oregon State welcomes USC, the #1 ranked Trojans, coming off a bye week after their throttling of Ohio State. It's a Thursday night, 9 o'clock game on ESPN. What do we see happen?
Well, every year we see USC go on the road in the Pac-10 and struggle with one team. But it will not be this Thursday. USC big over Oregon State.
USC off a bye week, conference opener. This is a blowout. At least 3 touchdown win for the Trojans. Friday night at Louisville, UConn comes in. This is a Friday night primetime game on ESPN as well. You know, Louisville looked impressive against Kansas State. Do they get the job done 2 weeks in a row?
I think they do. Louisville, however you want to say it. I think they win big over UConn.
No, UConn has only gone on the road one other time this year. That was to Temple. That game went to overtime before UConn finally prevailed. Give me Louisville in this game. North Carolina, we mentioned TJ Yates out 4 to 6 weeks, and right now they have to go on the road right off the bat to play conference opponent Miami. Saturday, noon kickoff at Miami. Probably won't be a huge crowd there at Miami. Who do we see?
I tell you what, Miami has looked very, very good this year. They've got a disciplined head coach now, Randy Shannon. I like Miami to knock off North Carolina this week. It will be maybe a slight upset.
Well, I said before, and I think you got to say it again, Miami's a legit ACC title contender now. Give me the Hurricanes. Colorado travels to FSU. FSU, let's just say it looked as bad as you could possibly look last week. Colorado, meanwhile, beats West Virginia in overtime for that program-defining win that one of us up here predicted. So, with that in mind, do the Buffaloes make it 2 big-time wins in a row?
Well, I think that the Hawkins boys have arrived there in Colorado. Dan Hawkins, the head coach, his son Cody, the quarterback. I really like Colorado. I do not like Florida State. You looked pathetic last week. So go ahead and prove us wrong. I like Colorado knocking off Florida State this week.
7 turnovers for the Seminoles last week. You can't turn this program around overnight, but that is something that you can fix over the course of a week. You know I love Colorado, but I cannot see them going on the road 2 big wins in a row yet. They're headed where they need to be, but I like the Seminoles this week. And after you win, don't think you've done something either, but you will win this weekend. Vatech, fresh off their win against North Carolina, travels to Nebraska. Rare out-of-conference game right here. Virginia Tech, like we said, beat North Carolina. They're looking good at quarterback, maybe finally with Tyrod Taylor 2 weeks in a row for the Hokies.
Nebraska's 3-0 this year, Josh, but I guarantee you probably don't know any of the teams they played. Haven't played anybody. Virginia Tech, let's be honest, they've looked bad at times this year. But 2 big wins in a row over Georgia Tech and North Carolina. I like Virginia Tech knocking off Nebraska on the road.
We don't know much about Nebraska, therefore by default I have to pick Virginia Tech. Give me Tyrod Taylor and the Hokies. I think they get stronger this week. Number 24, TCU heads into Norman to take on the 2nd-ranked Sooners. Who do we see?
Close game, Josh. I really think this is going to be a close game. Maybe for 3 quarters, maybe for 4, Josh. But I think ultimately Sam Bradford, just experience and 12 touchdowns so far on the year. Sam Bradford and the boys take care of business and knock off a very good TCU team.
Oklahoma will win this game, but it would not surprise me, like I said, to see this thing close late. And it would not surprise me at all to see this thing at halftime with maybe the Frogs in the lead. In the end, I think Oklahoma is just too strong. They pull away 10 to 14-point win for the Sooners. Illinois, with a 22 ranking, heads into Happy Valley at night to play a 12th-ranked Penn State team.
I think that when you look at Penn State, they're a top 10 team in every defensive category, statistically. I think Penn State just too much talent, too good. They take care of business, probably pretty big over Illinois.
I like Penn State. Like I said, I don't think it's an underrated team. I just think this is a case where you have a strong team who is yet to play anybody of equal competition. They will do that this week, and they will look impressive in the process. At least a 10-point win for the Nittany Lions. Tennessee heads into Auburn. Must-win game for both teams.
I believe you're right on that. You look at Auburn, I think they're better on defense than Tennessee is, and with 2 struggling offenses, I think that might make a difference. Tennessee, you look at Arian Foster last week with a 15-yard personal foul penalty. That's not what you have when you have experienced, disciplined teams. You've got to do better than that. I like Auburn over Tennessee this week.
Among other things, you mentioned Arian Foster. Turnovers have been a problem for him, especially in the red zone. If they can get that problem rectified, they can keep this game close. I don't think it's going to be a pretty game by any stretch of the imagination. In the end, though, I can't see Tommy Tuberville losing 2 weeks in a row. That offense has looked bad 2 weeks in a row. I think you see enough improvement this week, and that defense comes through for Auburn to win this game for the Tigers. All right, with that, we shift our focus to Athens, Georgia, our spotlight primetime game Saturday night on ESPN. 7:45, the 8th-ranked Crimson Tide head into Georgia to take on the number 3 Bulldogs. Both teams impressive last week. Alabama, I don't know what word you can use to describe what they did to Arkansas. It was not pretty, though. Meanwhile, Georgia heads out to Arizona State. Out-of-conference game. We did not expect them to struggle, and they did not. They beat Arizona State. What do we see in this game?
Let me just throw a stat out there for you. You talk about Georgia going across the country. They allowed 4 yards rushing from Arizona State on Saturday. A great performance. You talk about a word for Alabama. How about they dismantle Arkansas? Just completely destroy them last week. Both teams looked very, very good last week.
There is a very interesting matchup that we have to look at right here. Georgia's got a freshman starting center by the name of Jeff Owens, I believe. He will face Terrence Cody. Terrence Cody, for those of you who do not know him, nicknamed Mount Cody, 365-pound nose tackle for Alabama. What do you feel like for Jeff Owens right now?
Well, I think that you're a little intimidated. And what this is going to open up for Alabama is you're going to have to double team Terrence Cody, probably on every play. So when you look at that, that's a big disadvantage for Georgia. Terrence Cody, just a monster, and that's going to be a big, big problem for them. If you talk about matchups, how about this matchup? 2 outstanding freshman receivers for each team. A.J. Green, 8 receptions last week, just an outstanding week. And you look at Julio Jones, we all knew he was going to be good, but we didn't think it was going to be this quick. Me and you both saw it Saturday, Josh. A catch over the middle at about the 5-yard line. 3 defenders bounce off Julio Jones as he trots on into the end zone. Just 2 very, very impressive athletes and freshman receivers for those teams.
I tell you looked at Alabama at the beginning of the season, young and inexperienced at linebacker position, question marks all over the place at skill positions. This team has improved a lot quicker than we thought they would and quicker than anybody else thought they would. They carry an 8th ranking into this game. Is their defense enough to contain Matt Stafford and Knowshon Moreno?
When you talk about defense, Alabama top 15 in every statistical category on defense this year. You look at that, they're averaging 237 rushing yards per game. Defense looking great. I think that the big difference in Alabama and Georgia may be depth at the skill positions. It seems like every week there's been a different star for Alabama. The first week, Mark Ingram coming to fruition there and before our eyes. Then you look at last week, Glenn Coffey has about an 85-yard touchdown run out of nowhere. So you've got depth at the running back position. Julio Jones has depth at the receiver position. You've got to be a happy man if you're John Parker Wilson right now with all these tools.
It's incredible what Nick Saban has been able to do with that defense. Meanwhile, blackout conditions expected in Athens. Last year, Georgia dons the black jerseys, and they kill Auburn. So what do we see in this game in terms of who wins it?
Well, I think that a lot of times those are one-time things. The black jerseys, you didn't know anything about them until kickoff, and they go out there and put on a strip show for the fans and don the black jerseys. Very impressive, Georgia. I think that it's something that they can use to hype up the crowd and maybe get some emotion flowing through there. We also have to look at longtime Georgia announcer Howard Munson stepping down, retiring early. Maybe playing for that too. So there's going to be a lot of emotion flowing in that stadium. And like you said, you've got Knowshon Moreno and Matthew Stafford, just big-time players under the lights. Going to be tough to stop.
Larry Munson has been an absolute staple in the Southeastern Conference for the better part of 50 years. He will be missed in Athens. You mentioned depth. I think that's the key in this game. If Alabama's going to win this game, they really need to jump out early on offense. We've seen Nick Saban's team win the toss and take the ball just about every game this year. They feel confident in their offense. And finally, I don't think they have to ask John Parker Wilson to win games for them like they have in years past. He's looked solid this year. Maybe the stats don't jump out at you, but he's been efficient and he's got the job done.
Yeah, I think that he definitely has. And by the way, to clarify, I know his name is Larry Munson. Howard's my personal little nickname for him. That's between me and Larry. But when you look at things going on, I really think that the veteran leadership on both of these teams, we talked about John Parker Wilson, Matthew Stafford, that's what's going to step up in these games. You talk about big-time emotion all the time, both very disciplined teams. You talk about Mark Richt and Nick Saban, just great experienced coaches. That's definitely going to show.
I think for the reasons I mentioned, depth, I think if Alabama jumps out ahead in this game, it would not at all surprise me to see the Crimson Tide come out on top. I still think, even though they're ranked 8th, they may be a year away from really peaking. I'm going to pick Georgia in this game, closer than the experts think, though.
Well, the two of us were at this game last year. We saw Georgia roll into Tuscaloosa, just a big catch from Mike Henderson at the end of the game. I think that they were a year away last year. I think Alabama is better than Georgia from what I've seen so far this year. I think Alabama surprises everybody, knocks off Georgia this week in Sanford Stadium.
So either way, for the second week in a row, big-time SEC battle from top 10 teams. The biggest winner this weekend again, ESPN. Until next week, for Jeremy Green, I'm Josh Kidd and Ryan Rose.